What's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and today I'm going to be showing you how I took my setup from this to this. Now, my old setup wasn't bad by any means, but it really didn't fit my needs and didn't make great use of the space it was in. My desk was a little too small, the wire shelf wasn't being utilized well, and for the guy with one of the top ranking cable management videos, my cable management was beyond awful with my power strip literally dangling down. So I decided enough was enough and that I was going to basically tear it down and start from scratch. When going into a project like this, I like to start by drawing things out how they might be. I hopped into Photoshop and started to mock things up. So right now I have this small IKEA kitchen table that I use for a desk. Again, it works fine, but just isn't enough space for the things I do. So instead of just a larger desk going across, I wanted a large L-shaped desk that would basically be as big as the space would allow. That would let me have my main setup on this portion, then have a test setup to the left for benchmarking PCs and capturing gameplay. Above my setup, I wanted some sort of art or lighting and a long shelf to display or store things. Above the test setup, I wanted a pegboard where I could organize my most used tools and other items that I used on a daily basis. So with a rough idea of what I wanted, I went ahead and got to work. For my desktop, I wanted something super sturdy, solid, and aesthetically pleasing. So I did what everyone else has done and purchased two solid wood butcher block countertops. These are over an inch thick and each 6-foot piece weighed over 75 pounds, making them a bit awkward to handle. Neither of these pieces were going into my setup as is, and I needed to make a few cuts. I started by making the width of the side desk a fair bit thinner. I used the other piece of wood as a straight edge and cut it to width with a circular saw. Then I cut a taper at the end of this piece, and you can actually see I cut a little further than I planned, but it worked out fine in the end. For the main portion of the desk, I just cut about 4 inches off of one end to make the length exactly how I wanted. These countertops come unfinished, so you need to apply some sort of oil, varnish, or other finish to protect the wood. I opted for wipe-on polyurethane because I liked the look of it. It provides decent protection and applying it is pretty foolproof. I first had to sand each piece down and I didn't go too fine. I think I stopped at about 220 grit. Once sanded and cleaned very thoroughly of dust and other contaminants, I poured on some poly and began wiping it into the wood. Each layer you apply of wipe-on poly is super thin, meaning you have to apply more coats than with a traditional poly, but each coat is very quick to apply and it's hard to mess it up. For each side, I did 6 or 7 coats, waiting a few hours between each coat. I did this for both pieces, and before and after the last coat, I sanded with super fine sandpaper to make everything look and feel smooth. With it all dried, I was really liking the finish, and after getting approval from my supervisor, I was ready to bring these tables into my room. But first, I need to clear out my old setup. This took a bit longer than I thought it would, and it was kind of crazy how many cables I had on my little setup. So with the space cleared, I brought the tabletops in one at a time and laid them down with the bottom facing up. I used a combination of new legs that I got from Amazon and a few old IKEA legs I had. I put the legs where I wanted, pre-drilled some pilot holes, and installed a screw into each hole. Then I could lift the first desk piece into place. Yes, the gray legs look off next to the white ones, but you won't see them in the final setup, so it worked out fine, and I may change them out in the future. For the second desktop, it took a bit more finagling to get into place. The left side uses 2 of the white Amazon legs, and the right side rests on the IKEA Alex drawer unit I had for my old setup with some spacers on top of it. There's a reason why these Alex drawer units are so popular. They're affordable, look nice, and offer a ton of storage. For the main part of my setup, I kept things pretty simple. I first installed my monitor onto an arm, which frees up desk space and also makes it look pretty cool. I put my PC to the right of this, which is in a custom wooden case I built, and I have a whole video on that build and a video on building the case, which I'll link below. I then put down my desk mat and peripherals, which are the Logitech G305 wireless and the Annie Pro 2, which is also wireless, but it has a decent amount of latency, so I leave it plugged in most of the time. I also have my audio interface, which I didn't like the color of, so I masked it off and painted it a blue color that matches my setup much better. Above my setup, I put a shelf and some lights. The shelf is the offcut from the side desk. I've sanded and finished it just like my other desktops. I then marked off and installed 5 white shelf brackets into studs, put the piece of wood on top, and screwed it into place. I'm not entirely sure what I am putting on the shelf, but for now I just have a few product boxes and a few pieces of tech. Below the shelf, I wanted to install some of those cool nano leaf light panels, I started by using paper templates to lay out a design, and I played around with a bunch of designs, and once I had one I liked, I started to install the panels. This took longer than expected, but once they were all lit up, it was well worth it. These panels are expensive, but they're also super cool. I will have links for these panels along with everything else featured in this video in the description below. For the left side of the setup, I wanted pegboard on the walls. The most popular brand of premium pegboard is Wall Control, which is what I went with. They come in a ton of colors and have a bunch of different pre-configured kits. I got a 3-panel one that came with different hooks and mounts, but I also purchased extras to attach to the board. To mount these, I made sure my table was level, then used boxes to space out where I wanted the panel. I marked holes, installed drywall anchors, then attached each panel with 6 screws. These are metal panels, and all of those screws make the overall pegboard super sturdy and robust. With the pegboards up, I started to add stuff like tools, more bins for small parts, cups to hold pens/markers, and more of my most used items. This is awesome because everything I use on a regular basis is just an arm's length away, and I visually see exactly what I have, and if anything is missing, it's very noticeable and makes keeping organized much easier than if these were in drawers. Also, these bins and cups give me places for stuff like all my random USB drives, all my different tubes of thermal paste, and all of my pens. This is much better than my method before, which was just having this stuff spread out randomly in the room. For the setup below the pegboards, this is just meant to be a place that I can slap down a PC, plug it in, and begin benchmarking/recording. I have this 27-inch 1440p Pixio monitor with an IPS display, which actually runs at 1080p because of my AverMedia capture card. This capture card isn't that great, and I'll probably be switching to an Elgato capture card in the future. I have another one of those cheap desk mats and an 80% keyboard with brown switches and a Razer Lance head that I found randomly at Target for like $15 on sale. I would like to switch to another G305 wireless at some point. To the right of this is where I have all the cables sticking up, making it easy to again set down a PC and have it up and running in about 30 seconds. This is much nicer than my solution before, which was to build up and tear down a setup for each build video. To the left of this, I just have my PC controller of choice, which is an Xbox One. Next to that are my camera battery chargers, and next to that is just another cup with more pens. Below this side desk in the corner is my rolling file cabinet where I have surprise files, notebooks, and other documents. Other than that stuff, a few other random things is I installed this USB and SD card hub on the front of my desk, which is super helpful for transferring footage and other files to my PC. And I also added this Govee light strip to the back of the desk, which is cheap and looks really nice in my opinion. With everything up, I took a step back and was really happy with the overall look, and more importantly, the functionality of my new setup. It's not the prettiest or most high-end, but it makes great use of the space and I love it. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comment section below, and if you have any suggestions as to ways to modify or upgrade it, let me know that also. Also, if you guys want to see more setup videos like this in the future, then let me know and I can make that happen. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.